Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining today's DCAA training. My name is Harold Sargis, and with me today is my colleague Yuta Bangs. We're both members of the NAPEX National Training Team. NAPEX stands for the National APEX Accelerator Alliance. We welcome you on behalf of NAPEX and your local APEX Accelerator consultant. Your local APEX Accelerator is a proud member of NAPEX, and we are glad that they are co-hosting today's DCAA webinar. The APEX Accelerator Network consists of nearly 700 government contracting experts and over 300 offices throughout the United States, including Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, and Guam. Under management of the Department of Defense's Office of Small Business Programs, APEX accelerators provide education and training to help companies prepare and position themselves for government contracting opportunities. If your company is interested in government contracting and you have yet to engage with your local APEX accelerator, we encourage you to do that today. Just a few housekeeping items. I'm sorry, I skipped a slide. While each APEX accelerator program may be set up a little bit differently and they operate differently, in general, we provide training and assistance with registrations and certifications. We can also provide market research and bid match services in many cases, and we can help companies learn to navigate and position themselves for government contracting opportunities. An important role that APEX accelerators serve is connecting America's businesses to resources and opportunities. Today's webinar is an example of connecting businesses to those resources. Many APEX accelerators also host events to connect businesses with government contracting professionals and prime contractors. Just a few housekeeping items for today's event. Lines will be muted during today's presentation. Please post any questions you might have in the Q&A, not in the chat. Please do it in the Q&A, and we'll try to answer as many questions as we can. Slides for this training will be sent out to attendees within the next few days. Lines will be muted during today's presentation. And again, please post questions in the Q&A. Today, we are joined by Ms. Caitlin Regal. Caitlin is the Operations Audit Liaison Small Business Coordinator for the Defense Contract Audit Agency, also known as DCAA. Caitlin has been with DCAA since 2009 and currently acts as the agency's Small Business Liaison, offering education, guidance, and support to small and medium businesses working in the federal contracting realm. She graduated from King's College with a Bachelor's of Science in Accounting, as well as Strayer University with a Master of Business Administration, concentrating in government acquisition. Ms. Regal will be sharing insights into DCAA and audit process overview and breaking into GovCon from a DCAA perspective during today's presentation. So now please join me in a warm welcome to our friends at the DCAA. I would like to turn the program over to Caitlin. Please take it away.
Hey, Harold, thank you so much for that warm introduction. I am so happy to be here. You guys could hear me, right?
Yes.
All right, awesome. So let me share my screen. We'll get started. I'll probably go off camera when presenting the slides, but I just wanted to come on and say, hey, I see we have a good amount of people here today. So your time and your attention is much appreciated and valued. We're going to start off with intro to DCAA. So if you are not familiar with DCAA, we are going to talk about it today. We're going to talk about our org structure, which I just found out about an hour ago is going to change within the next few months. What that looks like, I can't tell you. I wish I had answers, but so keep in mind that the structure is going to change. We'll talk about our strategic plan, 2023 report to Congress results, what our CDAO is doing. It's a new division here within DCAA. Audit guidance, and then what an audit looks like so you guys can be prepared should DCAA come knocking at your door. So let's talk about org structure. First and foremost, so DCAA provides audit and financial advisory services to the Department of Defense. We also provide them for other non-DoD agencies. They're considered reimbursable. Anybody who is responsible for acquisition or contract administration, if they have questions, we'll try and get them some answers, basically. Our role in the financial oversight of government contracts, it's important and very critical to ensure the DoD is getting the best value for every dollar spent, right? The best bang for their buck. This is 2023. I know that's kind of dated at this point, but at one point in time, we had almost 4,000 employees, a little over 200 offices throughout the country, throughout the world, actually, and we'll get into that in a little bit. I can tell you for 2024, the dollars examined and net savings to the government increased exponentially. I think it's about 15 billion as far as net savings to the government goes. And I'll tell you what we are looking for during our audits in a little bit. Our agency mission changed, I want to say last year. I'm not really good with time these days, but I can tell you it is. So DCAA delivers contract audit and advisory services that exceed our customers' expectations to promote timely acquisition decisions and maximum buying power. So DoD has the necessary capabilities to deter current and emerging threats. One takeaway from this slide and the other ones, I want you to gather that we perform audits at the request of a federal agency or a buying command. We do not perform requests. We will not come out and audit your accounting system at your request as a contractor. So just keep that in mind. Requests have to be strictly from a DoD or federal agency. If you are a organizational nerd like me and you want to know where we fall in the hierarchy of the DoD, we would fall under Secretary Comptroller and ultimately reporting to the Secretary of Defense. We report separately than Department of Air Force, Navy, Army, and why is that? We want to provide that objective audit opinion. That's why we even report separately from DCMA, our sister agency. So there is that. We want to maintain our independence, our autonomy. When I said we were having an organizational structure change, I meant it. So this is the current organizational structure as of today. I feel by the end of the year, this is going to look drastically different. But for all intents and purposes today, yours truly falls under the operations division here at DCAA. We have 3 regions, Eastern, Central, and Western. We have fields attachment for any classified work. And then we have the corporate audit directorates for all of the major contractors such as Boeing, Lockheed Martin, BAE, Raytheon, all of that good stuff. If you are a visual person like me, this paints a picture on where the regions fall. I know it doesn't make the most sense, but as far as workload and division of that workload, this is how it lays out as of today. So Eastern region would be in gray, Central in orange, and Western in green. Now, we do have, it's not highlighted there, but we do have a European branch office. Should you have any foreign military sales, we do handle that as well. Strategic plan.
Quick question, Caitlin.
Sure.
You may cover that in more detail, but you mentioned that the audits have to be requested by the agency.
Yes.
Can you briefly talk about what triggers an audit?
That's a great question. So, depending on so we will get into this in greater detail, in the second half when we talk about breaking into GovCon. But for now, we perform audits at all phases of that contract life cycle. So prior to a contract award, there's a few main audits that we do, one of them being a pre-award accounting system, pricing proposal audit, rate information, forward pricing, cost realism. What would trigger a pre-award accounting system audit? If you are putting a bid on cost type awards, that would trigger a pre-award accounting system audit to be needed. If you are just working on fixed price contracts, you don't need an adequate accounting system. So you wouldn't have to necessarily worry about a pre-award audit at that time. Pricing proposal audits, we see requests come in for those around what's called the PGI thresholds, and it would be any pricing proposal package, firm fixed price over $10 million, and cost type packages would be $100 million or more. That's what would trigger an audit at that pre-award phase.
Thank you.
Once you're in the performance phase of a contract, there's a few audits applicable there, mostly for cost type contracts. And we'll get into that in the second half. All right, so that was a great question, and one that I feel like we don't talk about enough, so thank you for that. DCAA strategy 24 through 30. These are the top 4 goals of our strategic plan as far as optimizing value and customer service, cultivating our workforce, capitalizing on technological innovations, and then influencing the business environment. So a lot of goals to hit, and I feel like DCAA is doing a really great job at this. I fall in the operations audit liaison division, so optimizing value and customer service. I support the Navy as well as small business. So, you guys are my top priority. And then being at major events throughout the country, the last bullet there is definitely a goal within our organizational structure here in operations. Oh, so here's the contract life cycle involvement. You will see this in the second half as well, but I think the more we show it, the more we talk about it, the better it absorbs into our psyche here. So as I was saying before, prior to that contract award, pricing proposals, the pre-award, cost realism, forward pricing, we assist buying commands in negotiations. And then, as I touched upon before, the contract performance phase. You're looking at mostly all of these contracts having to do with a cost reimbursable type of award when it comes to incurred cost audits, interim payment monitoring, business system compliance, real-time labor and material evaluations. Those all have to do with cost type awards. So if you're only working on fixed price, you are not going to see them. What's the rationale for that, Katie, you might ask? The rationale behind that is that once you're agreeing to a price, once you go under contract with a fixed price type of award, there's really no risk to the government. I mean, maybe from a quality standpoint, but from a pricing standpoint, the government knows what they're going to pay, and that's that, right? That's why we really are involved with fixed price ahead of the award to ensure fair and reasonable pricing. But the risk comes to the government more so with cost type awards because that can fluctuate, right? So we have an idea of what we're going into and what we're paying at the time of the award, but actual cost incurred could differ. And that's where we come in to perform those incurred cost audits annually. We make sure what you are claiming are 3 things: allowable, allocable, and reasonable within the terms of the federal acquisition regulation and within the terms of the contract. So that's what we're ensuring compliance with.
Katie,
And then, yes.
question. How
Yeah.
does DCAA determine the adequacy of incurred costs and submissions?
Oh, that's a great question. We're going to get into that in the second half. But we do have an incurred cost adequacy checklist on our website. And I do have resources at the end of the slides. So I hope I answered that. There's a checklist that you have to follow, and it's available so you can do your own checklist ahead of time before sending that in. Any other questions?
Nope, that was it. Thank you.
All right. All right, 2023 reports to Congress. Let's just take a look at the results for 23, and I can tell you, year over year, I feel like we keep improving, but 24 was a great year for us. Once they finalize those numbers, we'll get them out. As far as 23 goes, we examined $253 billion, and that yielded a net savings of $3.5 billion. So for every dollar spent here at DCAA, we had a return on investment of $5.10. So as far as the most bang for our buck goes here at DCAA, you're looking at forward pricing and pricing proposals, including in that. That's where we're getting the most net savings for our government. That's our bread and butter here at DCAA. That yielded, a good chunk, almost 60% of our net savings from forward pricing audits. That's our main focus here. All right, so audit performance. These are just some more stats. I think everybody's getting a copy of this so you could break it down yourself. But you could see forward pricing. We didn't necessarily do the most with forward pricing, but again, we questioned most of our, the audit exceptions within the forward pricing. And again, when I say forward pricing, I'm talking about pricing proposal audits included in there, and the forward pricing from larger contractors.
We're getting a lot of great questions today already. I got another one.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
That's awesome. Thank you, everybody. Is the fixed cost one less risky for the government?
Yes. So there's different phases, right? So fixed price would be more risky to the government prior to that contract award, right? We got to negotiate the pricing, and we got to establish that what a contractor is proposing is fair and reasonable. It's that the quintessential example is that $500 hammer. Would you pay $500 for a hammer, or would you go down to Home Depot and pay $60 for the off-the-shelf version, right? So it comes down to, just making sure taxpayers are getting what they pay for as far as what our military needs using taxpayer dollars, and that we're not overpaying for that. I feel like that's the name of the game here when it comes to cost savings and efficiency these days. Once that contract is awarded, though, right, you went into negotiations, we've deemed it fair and reasonable, and you're working on the contract, the risk to the government price-wise really goes down. So I hope I answered that question. I can kind of go off on a tangent these days, but
I think that's great.
I answered that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So net savings, again, you're seeing the most net savings in the ROI from the forward pricing. I don't know how much more I can paint that picture for these slides. Audit exception sustained. So this is where we questioned cost or took exception to cost, and it was either sustained or negotiated or agreed to. Again, the most sustention there you will see from forward pricing. Length of time to complete audits. I hear this all the time. I feel like this is a common misconception with DCAA. So this is it in black and white, folks. Forward pricing, it takes average 90 days. I put this together in 2023 at the time. Elapsed days was around 85 for forward pricing. Incurred cost takes a little around 200 days. And then claims and systems audits, they do take a while. So post-award accounting systems, estimating systems, any sort of business system audit, you will see around 260 days. What's not included in there is pre-award accounting systems because they are considered a demand assignment. They are between 60 and 90 days to complete as well. We got to get that turned around pretty quick for the requester because that will hold up negotiations if not completed timely. All right, CDAO. So full disclosure. Ooh, okay. Full disclosure, this is out of my swim lane, but everybody likes to talk about it. So I've included it. Please don't ask me very technical questions about AI. I will start to cry. So we have our, our chief and our AI officer, and then we have various divisions underneath our chief and our AI officer, being enterprise platforms. I know we have a new audit system using to track all of our metrics. Capability exploration, that would be, they're exploring and testing various AI platforms to see what works, what doesn't as far as auditing goes, and to see how we can be the most efficient agency that we can be regarding our audits. So future AI applications, these are not currently in place, but they are researching it and seeing what's applicable, what's not, what could be used for efficiency. So as far as incurred cost audits, detection of anomalies in transaction financial data, proposal audits using predictive modeling to assess the proposed cost, seeing what's fair, what's reasonable. What else here? Automations. Can eliminate tedious day-to-day work. A lot of cool stuff. I've heard them talking about it. I've seen some examples. I can't really explain to you, and I'm so sorry, but I feel like you guys who we have here in attendance today can probably speak more to it than I can.
Quick
So
question.
EPIC is our, sure, go ahead.
How can a CPA firm become a contract auditor for DoD audits, DCAA audits, and other federal agencies?
That is a great question. I get asked that quite frequently, and the answer is I'm not 100% sure. You can reach out to our DCAA website, contact us. There's various divisions, and you could reach out to policy and ask how to put bids in to assist. They're called IPA audits, so independent public accountants come in and help us perform a few incur cost audits each year. Any other questions?
No.
Okay, cool. So these are the initiatives that CDAO is currently working on. Again, EPIC tracks all of our metrics. And then, like I said, we're doing AI frameworks and predictability, seeing if they can track any anomalies such as potential question, unallowable cost, I should say, any dual, what do I want to say? Double transactions or incorrect transactions. So they are working all of that, and hopefully we'll be training us on that soon. I think that's pretty cool, and I can't wait to see the technology that they end up using. So latest audit guidance. What is an MRD? So MRDs are agency guidance that's releasable to the public, and it's not yet incorporated into our contract audit manual. And I am not on my government computer right now, otherwise I would pull up our website to show you. It's a little difficult for me to do on my iPad here, but you can find the latest MRDs on our website there. I do have a QR code towards the end for easier use. I can tell you the latest MRDs. The last time I checked, which was last week, it was the cap for the 2025 executive salaries. There's an MRD about scanned documents, and I believe cost accounting practice changes. So all of that is on the website. Oh, got ahead of myself here. reporting question costs. So really it's just about open communication with DCAA, the person who requested the audit, and DCMA as far as the administrative contracting officer and the procuring contracting officer. That's what the top one is there. Scan documents, again, updating guidance on how we test scan documents for reliability. Contractor compensation cap for 2024, but I believe 2025 was just recently updated too. So these are examples of what you would see on the website for MRDs. And once, I'm gonna go back here. Once these are incorporated into the contract audit manual, again, also on our website, these will go off the listing of MRDs. Let's talk about the audit process. Oh, polling questions. Oh, look at you, Katie, putting polling questions in. I almost forgot about that. So I don't know how polling works on Zoom. So if somebody wants to monitor the chat and answer the question, so true or false, DCAA will not move forward with an audit. We didn't talk about this yet, but what do you guys think? Do you think we'll move forward with an audit if we have until we have an adequate submission or proposal on file? Do we think that's true or false? Are we able to see any answers in the chat, guys?
I am taking a look, so they can't use the chat. So if you put it in the Q&A, or if you can just, I don't know, you might be able to do like a reaction. So I got one true.
Okay, cool.
Another true, two more trues.
Okay, all right. So you guys are getting the vibe here, and you guys would be right. It is true. We will not move forward with an audit until we have an adequate submission. So let's talk about that for a second. Let's talk about adequacy reviews. No matter what you are submitting, and we actually did talk about this before, now that I'm thinking about it with the incurred cost adequacy question, it has to be assessed for adequacy. Until we have that adequate submission, we can't move forward. So if it's not meeting the criteria that is required per federal acquisition regulation, then we can't move forward. And the rationale for that is we need to make sure that what you are proposing, what you are submitting is true, and that you can support an audit. So for pricing proposal, for example, one of the requirements of the adequacy checklist is, did you perform cost and or price analysis on your proposed major subcontractors and direct material? And if the answer is no, well, that's case closed, it's inadequate. You have to perform cost and or price analysis. If it is yes, okay, well then you need to submit that in your package. So, did you get 3 vendor quotes for material providers, right? That would be adequate price competition. You went with the lowest one, and we're going to call it a day. That's considered adequate. Maybe you did some cost and price analysis on your proposed subcontractors. So what did you do to establish fair and reasonable pricing with that subcontractor, right? If I had a hole in my roof, I wouldn't just go with the contractor that came to my house and said, yeah, it's going to cost $10,000 to replace your roof. I would probably go out and get some quotes. Maybe I didn't go with the cheapest because I didn't like the material they used. Maybe I didn't go with the most expensive because I knew it wasn't in my price range and I couldn't deem that as reasonable knowing the other quotes. But I went with the mid-range because it was a little bit more, I liked the quality of the material that was being used. The contractor has a good track record. They have good reviews and performance evaluations. All of that is it's checking all my boxes. So, that's my cost and price analysis, right? So, breaking down again, the cost elements versus the price total. So those are just some examples of what would be considered adequate for a pricing proposal. Pre-award accounting system, believe it or not, that has an adequacy checklist as well. That's to make sure that you can support the audit. You know, how did you determine your direct versus indirect cost to be? How do you delineate between the two, differentiate between the two? So that's an example of that. We'll get into more of the checklist on the second half. But then once a pricing package or pricing proposal package or an accounting system assertion, all of that is deemed adequate, that's when we move forward with the audit and the risk assessment of the audit. So there's a few various forms of communication during the audit. At the beginning, we have an entrance conference. So we receive your submission, we deem it adequate, we start our risk assessment, and that's when we reach out and we say, hey, we want to hold an entrance conference. We're going to discuss, you know, why we're here today. So for example, a pre-award accounting system, you know, we were requested by the Navy to perform this audit in consideration for a cost type award. We're going to go over the audit criteria of, you know, we're going to make sure your accounting system is in compliance with the SF 1408, DFARS, FAR. It should take us 45 days to complete the field work. This is what we're going to do. And this is what examples of support we will request. And this is also your company can prepare for the audit. Another example, coordination of on-site visits. So we're back full time, right? So it would be, you know, Katie is coming on Wednesdays to perform field work. So I will be here on Wednesdays for the next few weeks, or just something like that. So please, you know, have a seat for me at your office so I can be there to perform my testing, and should I have questions in real time, be able to ask them. We'll ask you to walk us through your submission. So for pre-award accounting system, we'll go through that assertion, right? So we'll go through the SF 1408 narrative, which is about a 12-page document. We'll say, okay, so you answered X, Y, and Z. Can you tell me why? We'll ask you for policies and procedures. What we're trying to do is really gain an understanding and document our own understanding of your accounting system, your policies and procedures. If it is the incurred cost submission, you know, we're going to document how it was put together, right? We want to understand everything because that really helps us during our testing phase and our planning phases of the audits. And then you get formal canned letters, basically, of notification, what to expect and when.
And I have a couple questions right here.
Sure.
I think
go ahead.
One is, what are the requirements? I know that's a longer answer, so prefacing that. What are the requirements for an acceptable accounting system under DCAA standards?
That's a long, that's it's a long answer I have. That's about an hour worth of content right there. Let's just say you would need to be in compliance with DFARS. So that's the Defense Supplement to the Federal Acquisition Regulation. That's what DFARS stands for. The DFARS 252, 242, 7006, subparagraph C. Katie, you said that really fast, and that's because I can say that in my sleep. But we're going to go in greater detail again. The second half, we're going to touch upon that a little bit more than we would in this half.
Okay.
So,
2 more questions. They're shorter.
Go ahead. Okay.
The answer will be shorter. I'm confident. First is, can you share a summarized timeline of a system adequacy audit? Specifically, how long after identifying the need for an audit does DCAA reach out regarding the entrance conference?
You guys have great questions today. So for that, let's talk about the pre-award accounting system audit. I feel like that's That's what we're centered around right now. Pre-award audits, that's considered a demand assignment. So once we get the request in, we will assess the assertion for adequacy. That should take a few days. And then if it's adequate, we usually get kickstarted right away. Because again, that's a demand assignment and people are waiting on that. So that is something where we try to get done very quickly. So I would say within 2 weeks, you could be seeing a request for entrance conference and walkthrough there.
Okay. The next question I have, can you share just a couple common pitfalls and how we can avoid them?
Yes, and I'm gonna say hold that thought until the end of, I think, this presentation and definitely the next presentation. You will see a list of common pitfalls and how to avoid them.
Thank you. That's all.
Awesome. Great questions, guys. I love that you guys are being so engaged. It definitely makes this more appealing and interesting. So my thoughts go out to you. So polling question number 2. An exit conference can include a detailed DCAA walkthrough of all findings for most audits except, and again, we didn't talk about this yet, but this is kind of a prelude into the next few slides. So when we have an exit conference, it's similar to an entrance conference where we go over all of our findings. Now, we provide you a detailed walkthrough of all of our findings for all audits, except which of the following do we think? Pre-award accounting systems, pricing proposal audits, incurred cost audits, or floor checks? Do we have any responses?
Not yet. I'm keeping an eye on it.
Okay. Once I get 1 or 2 answers, we'll
Yes.
move on.
Price proposals?
Yes.
Real-time labor evaluation?
So the answer is pricing proposals. Whomever answered that quickly must have some DCAA experience. So for example, pre-award accounting system audits, any quote unquote findings or exceptions during that audit, we will talk you through them, right? So we'll say, you don't have adequate segregation of costs. The audit report would include what is called a Statement of Conditions and Recommendations, or SOCAR for short. And so that would include a detailed walkthrough of everything wrong and why we determined it to be wrong, or technical terms would be in non-compliance. And you would get a chance to respond. And we would include your response in the results, the audit report. Same goes for incurred cost audits and floor checks. Pricing proposals are a little different. And the reason for that is, again, pricing proposals are done, especially for fixed price contract awards, because the risk to the government, right? The government requests those audits and we provide the results to the government because they're the ones requesting it. And that's what they use to go into negotiations. So during an exit conference for a pricing proposal, we would say we questioned X amount or a portion of direct labor. Can't necessarily tell you the exact dollar value. We can tell you we took exception to direct labor, and that's really about it because the results are being used for the buying commands negotiations. I hope I cleared all of that up. So plan communications when it comes to the end of the audit, again, exit conferences. So we are going to discuss the results. We're going to get your view or your commentary on the findings or the conclusions. And these are held even if there are no findings. So if we took no exceptions, everything is peachy keen, we would still say, hey, we're just formality. Sometimes that's even a quick 5-minute call. So we hold exit conferences regardless. And then again, negotiation assistance for the buying command. Polling question number 3. Again, this is prelude to the next few slides. What do we think? All of the following are examples of DCAA audit opinions except unqualified, qualified, disclaimer, or certified.
A.
Wrong.
Unqualified. Let's see if we get one or two more. Certified.
Certified is
Unqualified.
correct.
Okay.
So the first three are examples of DCAA audit opinions, but certified is not one of them. That's a trick question. I put that one in there. Sorry, guys, I got to keep it entertaining somehow because we all know. So let's be honest, this kind of stuff is a little bit dry. So thanks for hanging in there. When it comes to audit opinions here at DCAA, the first one is a unicorn, is unqualified U for unicorn. This hardly is ever issued. And the reason for that is I feel like there's always some sort of reservation on the subject matter, and that's never against a contractor. For example, unqualified, we were able to perform all of the steps we set out to do. We had no exceptions, no question costs, no anything. And, oftentimes, so let's talk about incur costs, right? We weren't able to verify direct labor in real time. We weren't out there that year. We didn't do a floor check audit. That would be an example that would lead us to the next one, which is a qualified opinion. And that would fall under that second category there. Identified a reservation about the engagement. Unable to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence. Potential effects were material but not pervasive. I'm sorry, the first one, identified a reservation about the subject matter. This is where we weren't able to, an example, again, the direct labor, we weren't able to verify that in real time. So therefore, that would be a unresolved risk of material non-compliance. So that's where a qualified opinion comes in. Or you could have question cost, but it wasn't necessarily a huge amount of question cost. This is where the qualified opinion comes into play again. Adverse is a ton of question costs, basically, long story short. So we have a lot of question costs. We found it to be of material non-compliance. We found it to be material and pervasive. So for example, you've questioned 70% of the proposed material costs, right? Or subcontract costs. This would lead to an adverse opinion. The majority of the proposed costs are not in compliance with what it needs to be in compliance for. Disclaimer is a lack thereof when it comes to an audit opinion. There's no audit opinion we're not able to issue an audit opinion. We're not able to obtain the sufficient appropriate audit evidence. We weren't able to do what we set out to do. An example here would be if this is a pricing proposal audit and you did not perform cost and price analysis on your proposed subcontractors. That would be an example of you didn't do what you were going to do and we can't verify what you did, therefore we can't issue an audit opinion. That's basically what a disclaimer is. As promised, here is the QR code to our internet website. On here, you can find everything from the audit process overview, information for contractors manual. It is about a 105-page PDF document. It has everything from the SF 1408 criteria for pre-award accounting systems, requirements for incurred cost submissions, and everything in between. If you want to know more about overhead costs or rates, G&A, that's all there. It's a really great starting point when it comes to research. So definitely start there and see what rabbit hole it leads you down. Directory of Audit Programs. So if you want to know what we're going to do, when we're going to do it, This is a really great tool to have. So if you go to the QR code, you pull up under, I believe it's under customers or guidance, you'll see it's under guidance. Audit programs 17740, it will lead you to the pre-award audit program. So you could see, again, what we're going to do in real time. Checklist and tools. Under checklist and tools, you will find all of the adequacy checklists that we talked about today. So pre-award accounting systems, pricing proposals, forward pricing, incurred cost submissions. All of that is there at your disposal. Small business outreach survey. Let me know how we're doing, what we can improve upon, what you liked, what you didn't like. If you like me, great. If not, don't fill this out. Just kidding, please fill it out. We need to know if you don't like me and I shouldn't be doing this. So anyway, long story short, fill out the survey, please. And then questions, comments, anything you need. Try email first. That would be great. I'm in and out of webinars all day, every day, so I kind of get caught off guard and distracted with phone calls. But I do check my email and I do answer 99.9% of my emails, unless it's spam. That is all I have. Okay,
can you go back to the slide with the QR code, please?
Oh, yeah.
All righty, we'll leave it up here for a moment. Somebody's already saying it's like great information. Thank you. Here we have one question. Are there any resources the businesses can leverage for market pricing and rates?
That is out of DCAA's wheelhouse. But when it comes to establishing fair and reasonable pricing for rates, I can't really tell you much about indirect rates because your rates are your costs are your costs, right? So however you build your rates, that's what it's going to be. When it comes to direct labor rates, we can talk about the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. We can talk about paid labor surveys, taking into account the labor category, the job descriptions, the location, all of that. A lot of moving parts there, but all of that should be taken into consideration.
I would also encourage the person to reach out to their local APEX Accelerator who may have some ideas as well.
Awesome. Yes.
Yeah, fantastic session. Great presentation. Okay, the survey QR code. Can you go to the next slide that has the survey QR code? And I also put the link in the chat for everybody to see.
Thank you.
And you will also get this in your slides. Another question that came in.
Mm-hmm.
Is the DCAA approved fee amount something that comes from DCAA?
What is the approved fee amount? Can we elaborate?
Yeah, if you can share some more information on that. Keep an eye on the Q&A.
Yeah, I feel like
whoever responded.
Yeah, I feel like oftentimes there's a disconnect on some of the descriptions. So
when submitting FFP costing.
Okay, so the profit.
Mm-hmm.
DCAA does not review the profit, so that should be negotiated between you and your PCO.
Okay, that's all the questions I have.
Awesome. Great questions, guys. Really do appreciate it. Do we want to take a quick 5-minute break and then we can get into the next topic? We're making really great time today.
Yes, let's take 5 minutes. We'll see you at 1:50, let's say 1:55 or 55 before the hour. Thank you.
All right, sounds great. We'll see you then. Thanks. All right, I'm back and ready when you guys are.
All right. Go ahead and take it away, Caitlin. We're going to start part 2 of this presentation.
All right, let's rock and roll. All right, so breaking into GovCon from a DCAA perspective. Why do I say, first of all, can you guys see my screen? Get a yay or a nay?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. So why do I say from a DCAA perspective, we're an important piece of the pie, but we're not the biggest piece of the pie. And we're just, government compliance is just one little piece of the pie, right? I mean, there's so much to consider when it comes to quality and performance and building your business. So take this with a grain of salt when just trying to figure out where your company falls within government contracting. So types of contracts, you have two options, fixed price or cost reimbursable. And I start here because whether you're bidding on fixed price or cost reimbursable is going to be a dramatic difference when it comes to regulations and compliance, and where you're going to see DCAA involvement. These are just, again, they still fall under those cost reimbursable. So for example, fixed price incentive is still fixed price, cost reimbursement incentive. So there's just different types of incentives. IDIQ contracts, again, they could be fixed price or cost reimbursable. And then time and material, or T&M, is also cost reimbursable. I'm just trying to paint a picture of the various types of contract awards. So when it comes to fixed price, again, you're not, so once you're in, right? So you got to agree to the terms, the conditions, the price, what you got to deliver, what you said you were going to deliver, whether it's goods or services. And there's not much room for movement or adjustment or anything else. Government likes to award fixed price contracts, and the reason for that is less oversight, less administrative burden, but fixed price they're set aside for well-established programs. When the price is a little bit more fluctuating or unpredictable, that's when you're going to see those cost type awards. Pricing proposals, like I mentioned in the first half, you'll see an audit from DCAA for fixed price proposal packages over $10 million. That's usually around the threshold where we start to get involved. Anything less than that, you might see some cost price analysis from DCMA. You will have a lot of questions from your PCO as they try to do the work themselves. They, before awarding anything, they have to establish it is fair and reasonable. Simplified acquisition threshold, I believe, as of today, is still 250,000, if I'm not mistaken. There's a lot less red tape there. There's a lot less oversight. So if you are building your business, just getting your feet wet in government contracting, look for those types of awards. I think, it kind of helps ease into that. EPAs, or economic price adjustments, that's a hot topic right now. They are allowed. So this is the only type of scenario where adjustments are allowed, but it has to be implicitly stated within the terms of the contract. So if you currently have a firm fixed price contract award right now, maybe your material pricing went through the roof. If you don't have the EPA clause in there and specifically covered, it's almost like an insurance policy, right? Like where you're specifically covered for direct material, then you're not subject to any sort of adjustment. So that's what an EPA is. Most common cost reimbursable contracts. So you have the CPIF, CPAF, or CPFF. incentive fee, award fee, and fixed fee. The fee or the profit adjusts based on the terms of the contract and fluctuates based on the terms of the contract. Progress payments. So fixed price contract awards with progress payments are considered a form of cost reimbursable awards. This is the only time where an acceptable accounting system is required for fixed price awards. So check those terms and conditions within the RFP and make sure you know what you're agreeing to and what you're opening yourself up for when it comes to the potential for audits. Time and material contracts are pretty simple. It's literally just time and material for a specific period of performance. We check for labor categories, qualifications. You'll see a NTE ceiling price or not to exceed. And then again, this is considered cost reimbursable because you have to issue reports from your accounting system. So again, your accounting system has to be adequate here for these types of awards. Here's my favorite graph again, and it is the contract lifecycle involvement. So do we have, we already touched upon this, but do we have any questions before I kind of glaze over this one? I don't want to be too repetitive here.
Yep, none at this time. All
right, I'm just going to glance over them. Contractor qualifications, and I pulled this directly from FAR. The Federal Acquisition Regulation. So again, adequate financial resources, ability to comply with the contract, satisfactory performance record. Long story short, let's get down to the bottom one there. Eligibility to receive the award under the applicable laws and regulations. That will qualify you as a contractor. What is it qualifying you for? If it is a cost reimbursable contract, you need to have an adequate accounting system. That's why that was my segue there. I feel like I could have built it up a little bit more, but regardless, again, prior to your first cost type contract award, contracting officer will reach out and say, hey, you need to fill out this assertion. I have that embedded in the file here. I have the SF 1408 also embedded, but again, also on our website as well. So contracting officer says, hey, fill out this assertion. They forward it to us. We assess it for adequacy, if you remember from the first half. And then if it's adequate, we will start our pre-award audit. And what are the audit objectives, or what are we trying to do? We're trying to see if the design of your accounting system is acceptable for that prospective award. Again, are you, is the design ready to accumulate and segregate costs under federal cost type contracts? Are we going to establish, is it in operation currently, or is it set up but not yet in operation? And then, as I said in the first half as well, we're going to evaluate you on the audit program. So check out the audit program to see what steps we take to assess if your accounting system is acceptable. So if you recall in the first half, I did say the DFARS criteria, and that is the 252, 242, 7006. And I'm going to read this verbatim. I hate reading from slides, but this is really important that we know and understand the action words here. So accounting system means a contractor's system or systems for accounting methods, procedures, and controls established to gather, record, classify, analyze, summarize, interpret, and present accurate and timely financial data for reporting in compliance with applicable laws and regulations and management decisions, and may include subsystems, yada, yada, yada. Anyway, so I want to take a second here. One of the number one questions, and I'm sure you're just going to ask me it in the next few seconds here. Well, is QuickBooks okay? Is there a certain software that is acceptable that you recommend? And the answer is no. And the reason for that is every contractor is different. Every contractor, provides all different sorts of goods and services to the government. Every contractor is going to gather, record, classify, analyze, summarize, interpret, and present their financial statements differently. So the design is going to be different depending on the contractor. So that's what we're looking at. We're not looking at the software. We're looking at the design, your specific design of the software. So I hope that answers any preemptively answers those questions.
Yeah, that was exactly a question we have. Another one, you knew
Sure.
it always comes up, right? And it's a great question.
It does.
I appreciate you asking. Is there a way to validate if somebody's accounting system's adequate, or does it just matter how it is configured? For example, if somebody uses QuickBooks for accounting, can that be configured in an adequate manner?
Yeah, so QuickBooks, that's my go-to for examples because it's pretty user-friendly. You could design it whatever way you want to design it, and it's affordable for small businesses, right? So again, everybody's going to design that differently. So it needs to what's going to work for your business. I've done several pre-award accounting system audits. I've done them on QuickBooks, Uninet, Deltek, CostPoint. So I've done a few different systems. Many of them passed, many of them failed. Even the high dollar ones, right? So again, it's all in the design.
Okay, by design, do you mean the controls and how reports are summarized and interpreted?
Yep. Yes. So we're talking about the design. We're talking about the internal controls. We're talking about your policies and procedures are considered in that factor. And again, the design we're talking about, and I think it's on the next, is it? Getting ahead of myself here. No, maybe I have it in the pre-award accounting system, like the specific one. But look at the criteria with the SF 1408. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about design. How did you design your accounting system to segregate direct versus indirect cost? How did you design your accounting system to account for your timekeeping, your labor? How did you design your accounting system to produce invoices in your billing system? How does that relate to each other? How do they talk to each other to, you know, output your accounting system reports and then input them into an invoice for the government? How are you ensuring that invoice is accurate? So those are just some examples of controls and design.
Okay, I have two more questions.
Sure.
The next is EPA specifically applied for fixed price material and labor costs?
What are we talking about when we say EPA? There's a lot of acronyms.
Yeah. Dennis, if you can share some more information. In the meantime, I go to the next question. How often do awards under $10 million get audited? And are there any red flags that warrant an audit?
That's a great question. So we do audit for less than $10 million. It just needs to make sense. We have to have the resources available, and there has to be a concern. And that's what the red flag is. So if it is less than $10 million, you know, do we have a concern with your accounting system, with your estimating system? Maybe we had significant question cost in the past, and we just want to make sure moving forward that there's no risk of, you know, mischarging to the government there. You can see the bullets below when we're talking about risk of misallocation or mischarging. We just want to make sure that the government is not getting overcharged. So if a contracting officer has a concern, they reach out to DCAA. Maybe it's not a full-blown audit. Maybe we're only concerned with direct labor. Maybe we perform advisory services, which is non-audit, and we just kind of do some analytics and kick the tires a little bit, but we're not doing testing. So yeah, there's a few factors there, but that is applicable.
And I did get clarification on the EPA. I think where this goes to is your slide 2, the economic price adjustment.
Oh,
So
EPA, economic price adjustment.
Is it specifically applied for fixed price material and labor costs?
Yeah, I believe that's yeah, that's a great question. Sorry, I was thinking Environmental Protection Agency.
Yes.
Right. I just didn't want to assume. So yeah, let's talk about this. Fixed price with EPA. again, yeah. So revisions for labor and material. It's mostly just for labor and material. And again, implicitly needs to be stated of what is subject to adjustment in the terms of the contract. So 2 things you need to look for is the EPA clause for FAR in there. And if so, what am I subject to adjustment? You should see those, the breakdown of that in your contract terms.
That's all I had.
All right, great questions, guys. Really do appreciate it. Making me work today. All right, let's see where we left off. I think we left off here. So how can a small business or, even a medium business prepare for a pre-award accounting system audit? It's all the same. We're performing the same work regardless of the size of the company. Again, make sure you can detail the SF 1408, the narrative. That's that 12-page document I told you about. That's our assertion. We use a few different names for it, but we're talking about the assertion, and that's what you're initially going to fill out. I can tell you if you answer no to anything within that assertion, you're probably not ready for an accounting system audit. That's first and foremost. If you answer yes, you really need to include why you answered yes. And the reason is we need to see if you can support a sustainable audit. We don't want to get in and kick the tires and realize that you are not able to support what we need to do, and then we have to issue that disclaimer of the audit opinion, if you remember that from the first half. Compile a list of recent or relevant audit history. The reason for that is we want to see where the risk is. And for me, it's not a red flag against you as a company if you have prior question cost or prior non-compliances. It's what did you do to fix it? What did you do to overcome those obstacles? Because that's what I want to focus on as an auditor, to make sure it's not going to happen again, right? So if you had, a prior non-compliance where you didn't segregate unallowable cost, okay, well, what did you do to fix it? What was your plan? How did you implement it? And what are your results moving forward? So that's my 2 cents regarding prior audit history. Policies and procedures is so important. We ask for them at the beginning of every audit. Make sure you have well-documented policies and procedures. That helps DCAA not only assess risk, but where we need to plan our efforts and our resources. And I feel like that definitely streamlines the whole process. So that's my Katie with her auditor hat on, telling you what works best. So these are, when we talk about the design, so I guess I do have it in here. So the design, we're talking about, is your accounting system on an accrual-based accounting system? Is it on cash basis? Are you able to generate basic financial reports? All of these are aspects of the SF 1408 and what we're looking for as far as compliance goes. So these are what you can do. Make sure your accounting system is able to do this. This is what we're talking about when we say design. Any questions on this before we move forward?
I don't see any.
Awesome. Examples of non-compliances. I believe that was a big question in the first half, right? So what are some potential findings or red flags or anything? And this is it. Failure, and I'm not going to say these are the most common. We're not allowed to say that, but I can tell you I've personally run into these when performing audits, and so have other auditors. Failure to properly segregate direct and indirect costs. The lack of routine, at least monthly, posting to your books of account, improper timekeeping, potential labor mischarging, whether that is, ill intent, is that the right wording? Malicious or non-malicious, I don't know. A failure to exclude unallowable costs, improper procedures when it comes to paying your subcontractors, and then most common that I see anyway, invoices. Make sure they have both current and cumulative costs, and that those current and cumulative costs can reconcile back to your job cost ledger. So keeping in theme with cost type contract awards. So first we have the pre-award accounting system audit. What other audits can contractors expect when performing on these cost type contract awards? And that is a floor check. If you recall in the first half talking about reservation for engagement, that we weren't able to verify labor in real time. This is an example of what I'm talking about, a real-time labor evaluation or a floor check. So the objective of this type of audit, we're going to test your compliance with your own timekeeping policies and procedures and internal controls. And we're going to verify that your employees exist. They're at work. They're doing what they say they're doing, and they're doing what they're doing is within terms of the contract, within terms of the statement of work. Believe it or not, I've seen some horror stories, some battle scars in the field here when it comes to floor checks and not being able to verify where your employees are, what they're doing, if they're real or not. I've seen it. So it is real. The purpose to analyze labor charging, making sure it's being allocated correctly, direct versus indirect, that the time is accumulating correctly. And if there are deficiencies, addressing them on a real-time basis, right? So we don't want any labor mischarging to add up on the contract. We want to nip it in the bud as soon as we can. And then to support the labor testing when it comes to those annual incurred cost audits. That we can, back to the incurred cost audit, that we can rely on your labor distributions when we're doing testing at a later time. So it really is a beneficial audit to perform. What are the requirements? And you, again, back to that DFARS 252, 242, 7006 requires timekeeping system to identify employee labor by intermediate or indirect, and final cost allocations and objectives, and that would be your direct contract cost. And that your labor distribution system, again, charges direct and indirect to the appropriate cost objectives. Do I see a question?
Yes, there's just one came in. What triggers a labor floor check? Is this part of any other audit, or is it its own audit?
Great question. It is its own audit, and they are performed every few years, depending on risk, depending on if we've been there before. There are a few moving parts and factors. We don't do them as often as we used to because, you know, we typically are performing incurred cost audits, you know, annually anyway, or at least able to verify in somewhat of a real time. So yeah, these are, I can't tell you how often because it's different for every contractor, but it's not as often as it used to be.
Okay, when an audit is done, is it only done on the specific project, or do you audit the entire system in all projects? For example, if we have commercial projects in the same books as our government contracts, our practices on allowable costs may differ.
So yes, we are performing the system, the audit on the system as a whole. You should be treating costs consistently. That's a requirement of the FAR. So you know, an allowable cost should be again treated consistently across the board. We're not going to pull a commercial audit or I'm sorry, a commercial contract to audit. That's not within our swim lane, so that's going to be off the table as far as the scope of our audit. When it comes to incurred cost audits, we're only testing DoD effort. You have to report as far as the total goes for commercial items for FFP contracts, because we need to see that high level total. We need to see, because that reflects in your indirect rates, right? So you would need to show like the high level detail of that. But again, we're not going to go into the weeds and test those.
Could you go 2 slides back, please? Yes, at the bottom. The question was, what does it mean for invoices that do not reconcile to the job cost general ledgers? That's the last bullet.
Yeah. So one of the requirements of the accounting system design is that when your system produces invoices, that it has 2 columns, not only for the current month in which, or the current period in which you are billing, but also the cumulative amounts. This is important because it should help you monitor your cost, right? To make sure that you're within the funded amounts or the ceiling amounts. And that the current and the cumulative amounts are reconciling back to your both your job cost ledger and your general ledger. So your job cost would be for the contract itself, and then you should see a part of the total for your general ledger. Did I
That's
answer
all I
that?
had.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm never sure. I always walk that fine line of not enough detail, or Katie, you're overwhelming them. And you need to pull back a little bit. So I think we left off here. I think we've addressed all of that. In keeping in line with reconciliation, let's talk about that last bullet there on this slide, talking about accumulation of labor hours by contract. So this is your labor distribution report, and that you can design it. You should be able to design it one by employee, so you can see total labor hours by job, by employee. You know, are they working on jobs A, B, and C? Did they do training this week? However you want to design that. But you also should be able to do it labor distribution by job, so you can see how many hours and labor dollars are being accumulated by job. And the labor dollars should reconcile back to your, again, your job cost ledger and your general ledger, and then also back to your payroll reports. So how can a small business prepare for a floor check? Make sure you have an updated list of your employees. Make sure that's organized by location, if they are a direct or an indirect employee, and what types of contracts they're working on. That helps us with our risk assessment, because an indirect employee isn't necessarily as risky as a direct employee working on DoD work, if that makes sense. Labor floor checks are unannounced. I've had this happen to me before. I was performing a floor check, and the person escorting me around the building was yelling down the hall, "Hey, DCAA is here. They're doing a floor check." To announce to everyone that I was there. So at that point, we have to shut the floor check down and start all over again at a different time. So discretion is key. Make sure your employees are recording their time at least once a day. If not at the end of the day, at least by 10 a.m. the next day. Make sure you have clearly documented timekeeping policies and procedures. So for example, how are you setting up new job codes? Where are you getting that information from? How is time being tracked? What's the approval process? What are the, if you need to change your timesheet, what does that look like? And how payroll is processed. So that's including but not limited to those examples. Cost accounting standards. Full disclosure, this doesn't apply to small businesses and probably 99% of you in the room right now. So, but I do want to touch upon it because I would be remiss if we didn't talk about the potential when you're growing your business. Cost accounting standards, it's a magnified and expanded version of the FAR. It's really concentrating on uniformity and consistency with your established accounting practices. So keep that in mind. Keep this with a grain of salt, and just know that as you grow your business, as you graduate from that certified small business, that these are potential standards that you may need to abide by. Whoa, Katie, this is intense. This is a lot of information. This is my little cheat sheet when it comes to CAS applicability and coverage. I'm not sure if you guys can see. Can you see me zoom in here?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So looking at the exemptions to the right, you can see, actually to the far right corner at the top, contract or subcontract with a small business. You are exempt from CAS. If it is commercial, it's exempt from CAS. I see commercial. Sealed bid, contract set by when a price is set by law or regulation. So yeah, these are just examples of CAS exemptions, and the trigger point for a modified CAS coverage is 7.5 million. But again, you don't need to be concerned about that at all. What does modified CAS coverage include? That is CAS 401, 402, 405, and 406. Talking about consistency in estimating, accumulating, and reporting, consistency in allocating cost incurred for the same purpose, accounting for an allowable cost. And that kind of goes full circle with that question from before of treating cost consistently throughout the life cycle of the cost itself and the cost accounting period. Again, strong emphasis on not applicable to small businesses, which is why I'm going to keep scrolling. Believe it or not, and the whole crux of why I have this in here, is that there is overlap between CAS and GAAP. So when it comes to the cost measurement and assignment to accounting periods, CAS and GAAP have 7 standards that overlap each other. Cost allocation, foundational principles of government accounting. Government contracting. It's a little hard to see here. And complex rules to unique government contracting, respectively, each have 4 standards that overlap. So again, you're already following FAR, you're already following GAAP. CAS is just another layer here, and you're kind of a portion of the way there if you're already following FAR, and that's what this is. So even if you are modified CAS coverage, right, you grow your business, you're no longer considered a quote-unquote small business, and you're getting a $10 million contract award, and it triggers a CAS covered contract, you're looking at modified CAS coverage at this point. So 401, 2, 3, 5, and 6. You're already halfway there because you have to be compliant with FAR, the 31, 201, and 202 series. So definitely check that out if you're concerned with any applicability when it comes to CAS. It has an similar FAR reference as well. If you are in government contracting already and you are familiar with formerly truthful cost or pricing data, formerly known as Truth in Negotiations or TINA. I will always call it TINA because I'm a Virgo and I don't like change. So when it comes to TINA, the purpose here is to ensure the government is placed on equal footing with the contractor. So let's say you are subject to TINA, you have to certify that your pricing proposal package is current, accurate, and complete. That is per FAR 15403-4. And at this point, the threshold for TINA is anything over $2 million. And again, so for example, let's say you have a $5 million pricing proposal and you got an updated direct material quote from your vendor with a $500,000 discount for the materials because, they have a sale going on, prices changed, whatever, like that ever happens, right? But the possibility is that there could be a possibility that it could happen. So if you are in negotiations and you think, I'm going to withhold this information, I'm going to bank that as profit, that would be considered a non-compliance with TINA. And that's why we do that, right? We want to make sure we're all on equal footing, and that if you are getting savings, that you're passing that on to the government as well. There are some exemptions to TINA, and that is adequate price competition, right? If the government knows they're getting the lowest price possible, you don't have to certify your pricing proposal package. If it is commercial, again, it's probably the best price that the government's going to get. You don't have to certify. Prices set by law or regulation, or any sort of waivers applied. So for example, if you're bidding on something, there's 3 other bidders and the government went with your proposal package, again, you don't have to certify it because there's adequate price competition there. These are more for sole source awards, firm fixed price. I'm a visual person, so this kind of just helps me, and I really want to drive home that there are so much intertwining and overlapping when it comes to the FAR, when it comes to TINA. The TINA requirements are listed in FAR. What does CAS look like, and how are you pricing? The uniformity and consistency of your pricing proposals. Are you falling in line with your disclosure statement? And all of that just all has to be jumbled together. Frequently asked questions. I already addressed a lot of this with the accounting system talk, but how do I get an approved accounting system? You cannot. Long story short, there's no such thing as a DCAA approved accounting system. If you see any consulting firm advertising, hey, we'll get you a DCAA approved accounting system, or software selling a DCAA approved accounting system, run, because they're flat out lying to you. There is no such thing. How do I request an audit? I wish we could accept audit requests at the request of a contractor, but we cannot. Work with your contracting officer. See if an audit is needed. Does it make sense? The whole point is efficiency and resources. So we want to make sure an audit is actually needed. And circling back to, is QuickBooks acceptable? The answer is maybe. It depends on the design. I'll keep this up for a second. I know this is a popular one, so if y'all want to screenshot it, take that QR code. As you can see, we are ending the material that I have, so I am open for questions.
Thank you. And while we wait for questions, I will also post the link already that is on your next slide with the survey if you want to grab that. See if you have any other questions. I really appreciate everybody being so engaged today and having so many great questions. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I really do appreciate it as well. Probably one of my favorite webinar series to have with your group, just because of the type of audience that we have and how engaging everyone is.
Yes, yes, absolutely, truly appreciate it. All righty, there's a question. Oh, just a comment. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
And we so appreciate Katie to bring this training to us every month, which reminds me, see. So I don't see any other questions. So Harold, if you want to close us out, and I will post the link to the next training.
Yes. On behalf of DCAA, NAPEX, and your local APEX Accelerator, we thank you again for attending today. A big thank you to Caitlin Regal and the Defense Contracting Audit Agency for bringing us today's webinar. And as Judah mentioned, join us next month. She's putting the link to the registration in the chat for part 1 of the DCAA pricing series, which provides information on elements of an adequate proposal and cost and price analysis for small business. Thank you again, everybody. We hope you have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
And you will
Take
receive
care.
an email with the slides.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you.
See you guys next month.
Bye.